just sent you an invite, Bella. So, hey, there she
Hi.
is. Hey, 1 second here. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. And it's another episode of Doing It Sober Live. And if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you can also be part of our audience by requesting access. So you can ask questions and you can come and talk to Bella. Tonight, we have the gorgeous Bella Baskin, who is 32 years old. She got sober when she was 19. She is the CEO. We got an entrepreneur of the Blessed Bag. It's a nonprofit that sells hygiene kits for the homeless and for people to give out to those in need. So, everybody, please welcome Bella.
Hi, I'm Bella. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Bella. So, just give me 1 sec. I'm going to send out basically steal everybody from the other shows and invite them over here.
Okay.
There we go. So I am so glad you could make it. I know that as a sober escort, or I guess what's the other name that you would call it?
Sober companion.
Companion.
Yeah.
It's very, the schedule is, you just never know.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad you joined us. And I'm really
Thank you.
interested to hear about, I'm so interested to hear about what made you get sober so young. What happened?
I just knew that, the way that I drank and used was different from my fellows. I had known it for a while.
Mhm.
My history is that I had my first drink, my first joint, and my first cigarette all on the same night. And, it was just on and rocking. And, the second time I ever drank, I had alcohol poisoning, and because I wanted to see how much I could drink. And that's just how I rolled from day one, um, the long story short is that I just went through phases of different substances until they hurt me. And then I would move on to the next substance. And
Mm.
then I did the whole circle back to where I started, alcohol. And it was like, okay, well, I've tried everything. That's not the answer. So, like, what is? And I just had, I had the willingness, and I knew that the path I was on was far from the path that was created for me. I grew
Mm.
up in Beverly Hills, a well-to-do family, private all-girls school, and I was like raving in San Bernardino at 4 in the morning in a warehouse corner, drooling on myself. Like it was just like, how did
Yeah.
I get here? Like this is not what was, the path that was paved for me. I was way off of that. So, I went to a sober living and I did what was suggested of me. And, I went to AA and I got a sponsor and I worked the steps and, it worked. And they told me, like, if drugs and alcohol aren't going anywhere, and if you ever decide you want to go back, you can. And I've never felt the need to go back. I've never, relapse isn't part of my story.
That's amazing. I just find
Yeah.
it so incredible that you got it so young. It took me so long to get it. I didn't get sober until 32, which
Yeah.
you've been sober a long time now. And you're
Yeah.
30.
Yeah. 12
um,
and a half.
God, 12 and a half years. That is truly a miracle because I too grew up in Malibu, in that kind of arena of, well to do and just out having fun at the parties and the raves and the clubs, at a very young age. And wow, I just beat myself down till, long, long time. So it's just remarkable that you got sober so
Yeah.
young. Really, you got a
No,
good head.
it's a blessing. And you know, one thing I say to people who, get sober young, they feel like, oh, they're going to miss out, or they're going to, be different from their fellows. And, if my experience is like, if I ever thought about sobriety as something that limits me, like, I still went to festivals and raves for years and years and years. Like, I'm going to Coachella this weekend. Like, I go for a specific reason, and that's because I love music. I love to dance. I love to dress up. I love to take pictures. I went to school for costume design, so I really like enjoy that culture of it. But um, like, if someone had told me like, "Oh, you can't do that and be sober," like, then I wouldn't be sober, right?
Right.
So when people are like, "Oh, I could never go," I could, when people think about sobriety as a limiting thing, like, oh, I can never go to a bar, I could never do this, I could never do that because I'm so, uncomfortable, blah, 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 in social like situations, then
Mhm.
that person is like setting themselves up for failure, in my experience, because like sobriety has opened up so many doors, and I'm always like having so much fun that people are like, come up to me and they're like, what are you on? And I'm like,
That's
nothing.
so true.
Like, that's the craziest thing, is like when you're on nothing and you're sober and you're able to be present, then you're having the most fun. But when you're at a party or a rave or a festival, whatever your thing is, bar, and the whole time you're like, oh, I have to go out and chain smoke, oh, I have to go to the bar and get a drink, oh, I have to get another drink, oh, there's a line, oh, I have to go to the bathroom now because I got so many drinks. Like, it's like you're never able to just like enjoy being wherever you're at, because you're so focused on getting the next fix or high or cigarette or whatever.
God, that makes so much sense. So much
Yeah.
sense. I
Yeah.
also got sober in AA, and in California, we have really great sobriety. All of the meetings. I mean, I moved to Florida, but my foundation, my first 12 years were in Southern California. We were so blessed to have such great support there. And,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, maybe you could tell me how you feel about this. There's so many different people and, their opinions. And, um, for me, I kind of, at first, it was like I didn't see another way besides AA because it worked so well for me. But then I really started seeing, what was out there and what, people were recovering different ways. Um, how do you feel about the alternatives?
That's a good question. I really am not educated enough on them to really know. But in my experience, like, all the people I know who are successfully sober go through AA.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot of people who've been successful in other routes, but that could just be because the circle I'm in.
right.
I'm not opposed to it. I just know what worked for me. But
Yeah.
I will say, um, one interesting thing about my story is that, um, when I got sober, I basically just I did what I did in while I was using, which is I would cross addict from one substance to another. But I got sober from drugs and alcohol, and I um, just replaced that with eating disorders for a
Mm,
long time. And so I went to OA, and I had 3 years of abstinence in OA, and then um, my friend died, and that was a big trigger for me. And so I relapsed on my eating disorder, essentially, and I tried to go back to OA. I was in New York at the time, and I don't know if it was the meetings I was going to, or just I didn't have enough time to go to as many meetings, or like I picked the wrong person to ask to sponsor me, or what, but it would not work for me. And I was like desperate, like every
mm,
meeting I went to, just raising my hand, and they would
mm.
call on the people that went all the time and not like really let the newcomers. And I was just desperate. And I think maybe it was just the wrong meeting. I'm not saying
Yeah.
like OA doesn't work, but the second time around, whatever I was doing, it did not work for me. And I was desperate. And I went to a behavioral therapist, and
Hmm.
being accountable to him. Um, I got sick of telling him that I failed. I got sick of saying like, "Oh, I did it again. I did it again," and that worked for me the second time
Hmm.
around. So, and OA didn't, but it did the first time.
Right.
So, but the second time, for whatever reason, it didn't work. I was desperate. I would get like a day or 2 days or 3 days max. And it was really interesting for me because I had never had an experience with relapse before with drugs and alcohol or cigarettes. Um, and so this was my first experience with that, and first experience with having to, take an alternative route. But it was really important for me because I couldn't really treat food the same way I treated drugs and alcohol, because like you can drink or not drink, smoke or not smoke, but you can't eat or not eat. It's like learning how to
Right.
moderate in that
Yeah.
impulsive behavior, or like obsessive compulsive
Hmm.
behavior is
Yeah.
is a lot different. So yeah, like I said, like that's what worked for me with my
Yeah.
ED the second time around. So I don't see
Hmm.
why it couldn't work for someone who's anti AA for whatever reason, and
What do you think? Why do you think that you couldn't get it that second time? Was there something deep inside you that was kind of, were you hurt? Was there, obviously it's not just a, like, it could be a complex, but of your body, what you think of your body, but it's more of feeding that empty hole, obviously, when we have our addictions. What was the ultimate outcome? I mean, what really helped you get out of that pattern? Was it therapy, you said?
honestly, I think it was just having to be accountable to somebody, So
Mhm.
that person could have been a sponsor, but the couple people that I had picked, they weren't working for me. I had a really rough work schedule at the time. I was working 68-hour weeks, and I got one of those kinds of sponsors who was like, "Call me every day at 7. If you don't call me at 7 and you call me at 7:01, then I'm not answering the phone." Like one of those, And I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't work for me. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that might work for some people, but like, I can't like do that. Like, if I'm able
Mhm.
to sleep that week or that day, like, I'm gonna sleep. So, yeah, my schedule was really rough, and so that didn't work for me. And then I got someone else who I think just like never answered the phone or something. So, just having someone to be accountable to, and really like he was a behavioral therapist, so
Mm,
that's what the kind of therapy was, and that's
fantastic.
why I had to do some worksheets on, okay, I have an urge, why do I have the urge? I mean, I can't remember
Mm.
what it was, but it was like something like that every time I had an urge, and writing it down, and being accountable to him daily. And so
So, so are you, you work as a sober companion, which is, it's very hard to be a sober
mhm,
companion and help that person with their sobriety and then have your own program. Do you also
yeah.
sponsor as well, or you do?
Yeah. So that's really important. I think it's so important for people who work in recovery to make sure that they have recovery outside of that. So, like, a lot of times, like, I'm paid to take people to meetings. So I make sure that when I can, make at least 1 or 2 meetings a week on my own. I have a
Yeah.
great women's group that I go to on Wednesday nights. So I try to make it to that as much as possible, unless I'm working on a Wednesday night. Which
Hmm.
unfortunately the last couple of weeks has been the case, but normally I'm able to make that work. And then, um, I have 4 sponsees at the moment. They're in the work. We have a gratitude list text thread, and we all send it in there daily. And yeah,
That's great.
I mean, I have to make sure that I'm being of service, because there's a fine line of like, okay, well, you're being of service, but you're being paid to do it. So, like, what are you doing to actually be of service, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, like, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but like with Blessed Bag, being of service is like a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm of service in my own program, and sponsoring other women. I'm of service in my sober companioning job, and I'm of service with my nonprofit. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of just, I don't know how I became this person, but I'm like, who is this person?
I
but I
totally
think
get
that
it.
maybe I'm so selfish that like I have to counterbalance it this much to like to
I know,
balance
I
out
get
the
it.
am. So maybe I'm just like extremely selfish. So I need to do like more service work than the average person. I don't know, but um,
So tell me
yeah.
about Blessed Bag. That's the nonprofit. It's just so amazing. I went on there and I actually didn't end up checking out yet, but I still got to do that. Like,
Oh,
you know how busy we all are. I got
yeah,
onto it on my phone, didn't have my credit card, and
yeah,
then I didn't go back.
yeah,
I
yeah,
will
yeah.
go back though.
Oh,
Tell us
that's so.
about it.
So, I started it in 2018. I want to say January 2018. And I mean, I had started working on it about a year before that, I think. I'm bad with dates and numbers and names, but so basically, I was working at Warner Brothers at the time, and I would always get off the freeway and I would see this like homeless person, and I would always say like, "Oh, I should definitely like 100% go to Costco, even though I don't have a Costco card." Or like, "Oh, I wish there was like something on Amazon," or like, okay, I'll definitely go to Rite Aid and like get like a bunch of socks in bulk or something like that,
Hmm.
and then just like give those out. And I was like, that's like weird. Like, why just like one thing? And then I would get a phone call and I'd forget, and I'd see them the next day and I'd be like, oh, shoot, like I forgot, to do that thing I said I was going to do. And so I was like, well, why doesn't this exist? Because I know people like on Thanksgiving, they'll make the blessing bags. That's what they're actually called, blessing
Mm.
bags. And like they're a thing, they exist already. It's not like a totally original idea, but the idea is that what about the other 364 days of the year? So you might go like to your church or whatever you do, or volunteer on
Hmm.
Thanksgiving or Christmas, but like what about the other days, right? So so the idea was to give like the younger generations a way to be of service that feels sustainable, and realistic to them, because I know for me, like a lot of charities are like, okay, like, do you want to donate $100? And they make you feel like that's like not a lot. They're like, do you want to donate
Yeah.
like 100, 500, or 1,000? And you're like,
Yeah.
so 100 is like really not a lot. And that's actually a lot for me. So like, where is that going to go? You're making it seem like it's not going to do any good. So like,
Right.
maybe I should just keep it and like buy this pair of shoes that I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I know like my mom, I grew up going to like all sorts of charity events as a kid. I went to like Rape Foundation. I went to NRDC, which is the Natural Resources Defense Council. My mom was very into that, and I grew up going to that and being passionate about certain causes and stuff. And so she really, gave me that gene, I guess you could say. Um, and so, you know, I was like, okay, so here's a tangible item that people can buy, and then they cut out the middleman and they give it to, you might have a homeless person you see every day at your local coffee shop, or hangs outside your apartment if you live out in LA, or like hangs outside your workplace, or like the people that you see regularly. Maybe like you want to give them something, and there's been multiple times where they're at your car door window asking for cash, and you don't have cash, or you don't want to give it to them because
Yeah.
you're afraid they're going to spend it on drugs and alcohol or cigarettes, and you're going to add to the problem. So it's like an alternative to giving money. And the bags come with like 24 different items in them. They sell for
Mm.
$15, the men and women's bags, and then the dogs bags are $10. um, and that was basically it. I was just kind of like, no one's doing this, like, let me do it. And it's been a wild ride. I've had some like things happen that are successful. There's struggles, like all the paperwork, it's brutal, and they make it really hard for you to not pay taxes, but you still have to pay some taxes. So it's just
Ah.
like I feel like I'm always drowning in paperwork. And the thing is that's difficult, we do really well if we do like an outreach day that we fundraise for,
Ah.
but sales are really slow, almost non-existent. Maybe once a month I'll get like one, like it's like
Yeah.
very So right now my focus is putting money into like marketing and social media management and content creators and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to give it another go that, and is less pressure on me, because it's like
Yeah.
I was doing everything myself. And the physical labor that goes into it is uh, unbelievable. I mean, the amount of times I've thrown my back out,
Oh
we have
no.
boxes arriving to the house. It's like 1,000 deodorants. And you're just like, well, I
Oh,
guess I can't leave my house now. I had an appointment, but I have to move these, 10 boxes of, 50 pounds of deodorant, so it's when we do like bag restocks, it's definitely challenging, mentally, but I know it's all for a good cause. And
yes.
now we're just trying to get rid of the bags because we just did a bag restock and I was pretty burnt out from that. I was just like, I need a break. And you know, now I'm trying to revamp it and put money into marketing and get some sales. But
I'll
it's
do
hard.
a little push for you. With my
Yeah,
little following, I'll do a push,
yeah,
put a
yeah.
post
No,
up
it's
for you.
great. I do everything that I'm invited to do. I'm a yes man. Like I'm just like, yes,
Yeah.
you want to collaborate, yes, but the doing it on your own part is really hard. So it's great to have team and support and help and collaborators and people who support the
You're
cause.
telling
And
me.
yeah,
My
yeah,
doing it sober has been honestly a big pain in the ass for the last 8 years,
yeah,
and it's hard. I am just a one person business, and the store has gotten very big. I would get one visitor a month for a very long time, and now it's 170,000 a month, and it's just me. I've got a full time job, and
yeah,
I've got my recovery, and then the show, and it's just like I get to do all this stuff though. I
yeah,
get to do it. Before I couldn't even make it to any of these things. So I'm grateful, but I get what you mean. It's a struggle because when you get
yeah,
sober, your life gets big. You have so many
yeah.
things that you're doing and learning, and but I want to talk about your fashion. You are I don't know anything about your fashion background, but I know your Instagram, the pictures, the clothing, the outfits. I mean, you
Thank
just
you.
really kill it on all of the photos that you take, and you like to
You
travel
can
too.
thank
I know
my
that.
shopping addiction for that. I don't know how to
so
save
so
money.
where did it come from?
What?
Where did it come from? You have such a good sense of fashion.
I just have always that's just always how I've like expressed myself. It's always been like a creative, artistic thing for me,
Hmm.
and now it's matured, you know what I mean? Like when I was younger, I was a costume designer, and so I would make these elaborate headdresses. Like I went to Cal Arts for fine art and costume design. And so I'd make these elaborate headdresses with like all kinds of stuff on them. And I would make these like bras that were like in the shapes of things. Um, and, uh, and I was just like a raver kid. And that was just, I would theme my outfit to whatever event we were going to.
That's cool.
And it was just really fun for me. And I wish I had the passion to do that. I really miss it. But when I left LA to do photography at SNL, I kind of gave all that up just because my work schedule there was so crazy that I just didn't have any time to do it. And then after that, it just seemed like, well, what's the point? Because I just like, it doesn't make me money,
Yeah.
which is really sad. And I miss making art and costume stuff, but I
Hmm.
still get really excited by other people's passion for it and like find these, I was doing styling for a while. I went on tour with a friend of mine as her like stylist photographer, um,
That's
after I
cool.
left. Warner Brothers, and started doing the sober companioning stuff on the side, and kind of was just freelancing and starting Blessed Bag.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the timeline is I was at SNL for 3 years, and then I was at Warner Brothers for a year, and then was freelance styling, photography,
Mhm.
and starting Blessed Bag and sober companioning on the side for just like money. Um, and then I moved into the social media space, and I was doing that. I'm still doing it a little bit on the side, but I was doing that solid for a year. And then in October, they did layoffs, and so I started sober companioning full time.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's one of those things where I'm like, not sure how I got here, but good thing I'm sober so I can do this job. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do this job without my recovery. So,
Right. It's a good job
grateful.
too. I mean, it pays well. It's
Yeah.
not easy, but it does pay well. You are going to Coachella, and you were talking about what you were going to wear, I think, recently. What are you going to wear? Because I know you're going to come up with something super cool.
So um, I have followed this girl. I follow people who their sense of style inspires me.
Hmm.
And so I oh my god, there's a guy in front of me who's just like standing with his eyes closed, like
Oh,
taking in the sun.
no.
Sorry, very distracting. I was like,
It's all
what's
right.
happening? Anyway, so I follow influencers or whatever that I enjoy their sense of style or fashion. And
Mhm.
so I somehow stumbled upon there's a girl she's like a burlesque dancer that I follow, and she tagged this person who does custom 3D latex. And so I had her custom
Mm.
make me this gold belt and bra that's like very like, I don't know how to describe it. It looks like vines almost. And so it's like this 3D latex thing, and it's just gold and gorgeous. And so that's one of the things. And there's a couple independent designers that are kind of like festival designers that I follow. So I got something from them. And then there's
That's
this
cool. How
brand in
exciting.
London, and they made it was actually really difficult. I was like, okay, I had certain things in mind, but they were like not on the website anymore. So then I had to email them, and they were like, oh, we have a couple left. Do you want this one? And I was like, yes. And then just like one piece or like two-piece sets. And one of them is like very like fairy esque. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, I follow the people that inspire me, or I like their stuff. And when
Yeah.
it comes time, I'm like, oh my God, I've had my eye on that forever. And this is the perfect, you know.
Love it. Love it. I admire that. I'm a creative person and I'm an artist,
Mhm.
and I also create costumes,
Oh,
really
cool.
weird, like mostly Halloween costumes, because that's all I
Yeah.
got right now. There's no
Yeah.
jobs pouring in for me to, do costumes right now. But I
Yeah.
just do it for fun. Like I paint and I do folk art, but I love when Halloween comes around because they give a big prize at my work. It's like three or four hundred
Yeah.
dollars, and I just
Yeah.
always have to win it. So
Yeah.
I did
Oh,
a
cool.
costume. You would
I
have
want to
loved it.
see.
I did
I
it
want
a
to see your costume.
unicorn. It was a unicorn, and it was the hair went all the way down, and I made a whole unicorn back and butt and legs, and it had wheels, and it was like I was
Oh,
a unicorn. It was
oh my
so
God.
cool.
That's
I have to
so
send you a
cool.
picture.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
definitely want to see that. Yeah, I love Halloween. That's my favorite holiday, and
Me too.
I
Me
always
too.
kill it. Like, not to
Yes.
toot my own horn, but I just like, I'm sure you feel the same. I'm the queen of Halloween. Like, I love it, and I
Yes.
just, yeah. And thank God I have my fiance is like down. He's just like here for
Yes,
it.
I was
So
going to
he's
ask you.
like, we do whatever. Yeah. So
You just
we
got
were studying
engaged. I
for
saw
this year.
Paris. You got engaged recently, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We
Congratulations.
were in Paris and it was very romantic, and I was totally surprised. Eiffel Tower in the background. It was just perfect and so
Yeah.
romantic and everything I ever dreamed of. So,
Now, is
yeah.
he sober?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Oh,
been sober like 6 months longer than I have. So he's got like 13 years.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems a little easier to do things with the sober partner. My husband, he's a year behind me, so he's 15, 14. He's a little bit more than a year. And he is, you know, I can't imagine this guy without recovery. He's been like, he'd probably be dead, but he'd be pretty nuts. Just, it just makes things so much easier. There are people who have relationships with people that are, they're normies, they don't drink or whatever, but it's kind of nice to have somebody to share recovery with. It's it's
Yeah.
it's it's been good for me in
Yeah.
the last 10
It,
years I've been married to
yeah.
him.
I think it was something that was important to me, just to have someone who understood um, the same, moral values and things that have kind of been, you know, taught to me through AA and through the 12 steps. And he almost is so normal that I forget he used to like do drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he's so recovered that it's like,
That's cool.
it's crazy, but it's incredible, and he is incredible, and I'm so lucky. Like, there's a saying of like, my dad's friend always says, dating in AA, like, the odds are good, but the goods are odd. And
Yes.
like, that's so true. Like, I've had some very questionable partners of people I've met in AA. And so, um,
Yes.
it's a challenge. It's a challenge to find someone, because, when we come in, we're sick individuals. And so it's really difficult to find people who have really done the work on themselves and
Mhm.
really practice the principles in all their affairs and are really recovered,
It's
So,
it's hard enough to
yeah,
find anyone in LA as it is. To put
yeah,
that on top of it is
have this
someone at
glare
your
on
window.
you.
No, oh, the sun.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, well, that's really good. I had a hard time. My first 5 years, I was still dating people that would cheat, and I just couldn't figure out why. And so I stopped dating for like a year, and I did do some therapy, and it helped because almost a year to the date, I met my husband, so that worked out. So
Oh,
yeah, it was really good. Um, so what do you see for your future? Because I know you got a lot going on. What do you like going? Okay, this is what I want for my future in 5 years. Like, what do you have?
good question. I think right now I'm kind of like riding this wave of sober companioning because, um, it pays well and I enjoy it and it's fun for me, and I'm still
Mhm.
young and I can sleep on an air mattress and that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not sustainable long term. Like, once I have kids, I'm not going to be sleeping at other people's houses. So,
Yeah.
so, um, it's definitely something to think about. But right now, I'm just kind of riding the wave of like, I don't know what my next thing is. I really have been saying this for years of like, I want to get back into doing something creative.
Mm.
But, I'm not sure what. And the passion for it isn't there in the same capacity that it once was. Um, and I just got engaged, so like there's already wedding
Yeah.
planning stuff, and that's kind
Oh
of the
yeah, that's
focus.
fun.
But in 5 years, like, I'm sure I'm going to be a mom.
Yeah.
I'm 32, so I think that'll be, what I do. And, I don't know if I'm going to start a business. I had a couple ideas that, I just don't have the time right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully, the goal is for Blessed Bag to be successful, and kind of just running on its own,
Yeah.
and sales to be coming in regularly, and to have people really understand the value of having something as part of their daily lives that involves them being of service, and it's not just sober people. Like, I think our generation, my generation, is so self-absorbed, and we've been trained to, who's liking our picture and who followed me and they unfollowed me and oh my God, selfie and this. And it's just like, it's exhausting. And the best part of my
Yeah.
day is when I'm being of service to somebody else and doing
Yeah.
something nice for somebody else. And so I think if, the younger generation can have something that's, tangible, like a tangible item, because when you give money to a charity, you have no idea where that money is going. You don't get the benefit of like, wow, I feel so good because I was of service and I did something nice for someone else. Like, this is literally you handing someone a bag that's they're going to be grateful for,
Yeah.
to someone in need, and it costs you $15. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's so
It's
like, why, especially in LA, it's like, why aren't you keeping those bags in your car like all the time, right?
right.
So
Right.
that's the goal for Blessed Bag, is just for people to it just be a regular thing, and that's why we have subscriptions, and people can, subscribe and get bags a month, or more than that. And yeah, I'm just hoping that Blessed Bag becomes successful, because I really believe in it, and I think it's a great idea, and a great
It is.
thing that people should do. And yeah, I think
Looks
just the
like your
typical.
future. Your future
Yeah.
looks bright. That's awesome. I sometimes I wish I got sober younger. It would have been so much better. I just you waste so many years out there, and then before you know it you're almost 50, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm almost 50." It's just I still have that mentality that I'm not 50, but it's like, "Oh
I
my
have to
god."
say that people say that all the time when they hear how young I got sober. And the thing is like, I really had to grow up in this program. Like, I made all the mistakes. I
Mhm.
had other addictions I needed to work through. I had lots of childhood trauma I needed to work through, lots of therapy. I was dry for a few years, so I had to like start over. Like, I really don't feel like I got like a leg up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel
Yeah.
like I'm where I wanted to be by the time I was 32. Absolutely not. Like, I don't, I'm not like, wow, thank God I got sober early, because now everything
Yeah.
like what I thought it would be. Like, it's not like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I know a lot of people think, oh, if I had gotten sober, but it's like, no, if you had gotten sober earlier, guess what? You would have been 19 like I was, and I dated all the wrong people and did all the wrong things and had all the
Yeah.
eating disorders, and
Yeah.
and it's still like I said, like, you're like, oh, you're fashion. It's like, okay, well, that's something I'm trying to work on, right? Is like, I need to learn how to start saving money instead of just spending my money on clothes. Like, I can't do that if I want to like live the life that I want to live. It's not like
Yeah.
I get a
I get
paycheck
it.
and I spend it. That's not going to get me very far in life. So like, that's actually something that I'm trying not to do. And it's always, there's always room for improvement. There's always
Yes.
room for growth. It's never like, okay, I'm done now. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
perfect now. It's like, there's always
Right.
stuff to be worked on, and always character defects that come up. And yeah, it's hard. And, I love what I do, and I'm grateful to be sober companioning, but it's still hard. Like, I haven't been home in a week, and I miss my
Oh,
dogs, and I miss my fiance, and I miss just being home, and miss my bed. And it's there's always challenges. The grass,
yeah.
everyone feels like the grass is greener on the other side. But
Yeah. Yeah, always. Always. Yeah, I have an obsession with vintage purses. I spend a astronomical amount now that I'm like thinking about it. It's crazy. And I just, it's got to stop.
Yeah,
But it's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and
you
I'm so
too.
thankful that you were able to join us. Even coming on a little bit later, we were
Mhm.
against all the other shows, but you know what?
Mhm.
Uh, this will go out on all the podcasts and all the podcaster listeners. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Of course.
Bella, thank you. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your evening. And I'm going to do a little push about your product on
Okay.
Instagram and see how
Thank
many
you.
bags we can get out to these homeless people, because what a great idea. Just so
Thank
cool.
you
And the
so
bags are
much.
cute. They can put their
Yeah.
stuff in them after they're done using the
Yep.
items, which is so cool.
Yep. They're reusable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything you want to say before we close out?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It was nice to meet you,
Oh,
and I'm excited to see your Halloween costumes.
yes. Thanks so much and have a good
Okay.
evening.
You too.